When my guest was a young boy, he would put dots on a map of Africa in search of imagined treasure. Today, he marks that same map in the places that are lacking treasure. Caleb Bislow takes the hope of Christ to those dark and dangerous places. I'll let him explain.
Some people have said that I walk to the beat of a different drum. Others have told me that I'm out of my mind or crazy. I suppose both of them are right, but it hasn't always been this way. I went into ministry shortly after college, but it didn't take long for me to realize that the ministry God was calling me to would be far from typical. I wanted to live my life for Christ like an unusual soldier, on a mission to bring hope to those that are often feared by the church, places of risk, places that I like to refer to as the 13th floor. You see, most Christians try to avoid the 13th floor at all cost, and they are rarely invited to go there. But I wanted to join the dangerous few that dared to trespass. But my inadequacy haunted me. The more I meditated, the more afraid I became. What could I do? I didn't know enough. I was just an art major in college. It would cost me all the money that I had. It would be hard on my family. And what if I failed?
It's been called a book for aspiring heroes about real heroes by a quiet hero. Now, those are not the words of a quiet individual. If you're familiar with the name Bear Grylls, adventurer, Christian brother, host of Man vs. Wild, and this summer's TV series Get Out Alive, those were his words about this book, Dangerous, engaging the people and places no one else will. The author and quiet hero has sought to advance God's kingdom on every inhabited continent of the world. Caleb Bislow, director of Unusual Soldiers, joins us from Franklin, Nebraska. I don't know if I've met an extreme missionary before, Caleb.
Well, I try to be, I guess. So.
And an ordained minister.
Yes.
And a man with, I'm sure, a very rare wife.
Well, they are more impressed with my wife than they are with me. She's an amazing woman who God has allowed her to let me go to these places and have ease and peace while she's at home. So.
And 3 children?
3 kids, yeah.
Ages?
Well, we got 6, and we got 3 and 2. So 3 wonderful kids.
I can't read a book like this and not think about your family. But God clearly directed you on this path.
Yeah, I mean, ever since I was a young kid, I had a love to take risk, was a motocross racer, but later in college, you know, God got a hold of me and my faith and had a surrender moment with Him, and started looking outside the box for missions opportunities, going to Gothic hangouts in different places, and just came alive in those kinds of more darker, more extreme environments, and opened up a whole door of ministry in the future.
Some very interesting evidences of God's leading and confirming the vision. Talk about the boy in your vision.
Early on in ministry, I had a strange vision of a boy, and I'm from a conservative church, so this wasn't normal for me, but just was asking the Lord to speak to me. And as I silenced myself, there was a vision of a boy, African-looking boy, underneath the wing of an airplane holding a staff, and I just drew it in my journal, and beside it I wrote, "Keep searching for this boy." And then I forgot about it, you know, and just got lost in my journal, and didn't know.
We have a picture of that
sketch.
Yes,
we do, yeah.
This is what you put in your journal.
Yes, here's a picture of the boy, and I actually drew that picture and forgot about it. Didn't know if it ever come to fruition or what it even meant.
Until
about a year later, had a heart for the Maasai tribe in Africa, a real burden for a tribe. And at that time, they were in a fight with a neighboring tribe, but since God was calling me to go there, and went there with a backpack, a burden, and a Bible, and we saw a lot of people come to Christ. It was amazing. I didn't realize God could use an art major like me to do those types of things. And then a year after that, I go back, and lo and behold, I'm GPSing in an airplane all these places in Africa that really are places of unreached people that don't know Christ. And on a small landing strip, this African boy comes up to us under the wing of an airplane and gives his life to Christ. It was amazing, and I didn't even remember about the journal entry, but there's actually a picture. That was the moment there where this boy is by that airplane, and he gave his life to Christ, and just as a touching moment.
Wow, so many affirmations that this was in God's good, pleasing, and perfect will for you.
Yes, yes, very much. And you know, we ended up doing a conference there later, a kind of a disciple-making conference, launching people out, and we were sent a call to go to a place called Magadi, and lo and behold, as we finally got to Magadi, there was this boy that came up to us, and he said, "I think I know you guys." And I was like, "How can you know us?" And I don't think I'd been here before, but it was that same African boy underneath that airplane, and here he is again. And so we were just touched and sensed confirmation that God was leading us to these people, and it's been an amazing movement, and God's led us to some neat places since then.
The Maasai was the inaugural.
Yeah.
But you've been, as you say, many other places, continents, people. How do you decide where to put the dot on your map of the world? How are you choosing the dark, dangerous, and despised places?
Yeah, well, some people think, are you just choosing the riskiest, most dangerous place? And that's not the case. To me, it's about John 10:27, about listening for the Lord's voice and prompting. And maybe it's not always a dangerous place, but it's always a surrendered heart of being willing to go wherever He leads. And a lot of it is through a burden. Maybe I see something on television, or maybe I sense an image, or read about a country. And if I can't find contacts there, a lot of times I'll buy a plane ticket and I'll find some. And God has allowed that to spark some movements in some pretty darker places, I guess you could say.
Keyword, movements. Because this isn't what can Caleb do going to this spot on the map. It's actually seeking to establish disciple-making movements wherever you go.
Yeah, that's my passion. I don't want to just show up and blow out, you know, and see a lot of hands raised, but we want to see disciples making disciples. So we are always partnering with local ministers in the area, training them how to launch these movements. And that's what I live for, is hearing their stories, not my stories, you know, but seeing these movements launched.
And you're building soldiers to do exactly what you do, these unusual soldiers. I'm reading about the basic, advanced, and strategic preparation for people who will say yes to living dangerously. Let me ask, first of all, Bear Grylls,
Yeah.
British adventurer and TV star, former SAS. You trained with him.
Yeah, I was a part of his first Bear Grylls Survival Academy in Scotland. It was awesome to be on the team and meet him and meet a lot of his British commandos that have worked with him in the past, and learned a lot from them. I would recommend it for anybody. It was a great experience.
In the Scottish Highlands.
In the Scottish Highlands, of all places, Braveheart country. I loved it. So, yeah.
So where do you take your recruits?
I take them
Just
to
select a few a year.
just a few a year. We invite them to the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, and so that weeds people out. It's not that attractive, you know, and we do a lot of survival training, but also prepare people for these darker and more dangerous places. Create some scenarios there, some really worst-case scenarios you might go through to see how they handle it and to teach them along the way. And we call it stranded, so we don't try to make it necessarily the most inviting and appealing thing. We're trying to really narrow it down to a few.
How's the response?
Well, the few that we get that come really want to be there, and that's what I'm looking for. And we've seen God not only allow us to train them, but now some have gone to the Congo, UFC fighters launching movements there, young 21-year-olds going to one of the last hunting gathering tribes in Africa and Tanzania. And so it's neat to see how God is He's raising up what I call unusual soldiers around the world. It's very exciting.
It is so unique. The book quotes Ruth, a refugee and sole survivor of a rebel attack in the Democratic Republic of Congo, who says, "If it was not for Caleb living out the principles of this book, I probably would not be alive today." What's Ruth's story?
That's a long one, and we've kind of adopted this girl, but her whole family was killed in the Congo. Her dad was beheaded, her mom was shot, her young 4-year-old brother was shot and killed in her arms as she ran through the woods. And anyway, she was in the Congo, and make a long story short, people were seeking out to kill her, and we found her, and we said, we got to move you out of that country, and we moved her to another country, and so I've adopted her from a distance. We're supporting her. She's going to school. She speaks English now, but she's one of my kids, and we talk to her weekly, but it's a tough story for me to talk about, but she's That's why we do what we do, though. That's why the risk is always worth it, to reach people like that.
So many wonderful stories. Wonderful to see what God is doing. And if you didn't write about it, we wouldn't know this stuff.
That's true.
Tremendous. Caleb, you say, is the brave heart of the Bible.
I don't say that. John Maxwell said that. So that inspires me to try to live up to that. In the Maxwell Leadership Bible, he said that. So Caleb is one of my most inspiring characters in the Bible. He was a guy that believed in taking the land and didn't let the giants stop him. Always pursued the God-given vision over the fear. And that's who I want to strive to be like. You know, when my mom named me that, she didn't even know who that was. But now it has just a close, obviously it carries my name as well. And it's something worth striving after, I suppose.
Not everybody can even imagine doing what you are doing. But I think the challenge that you bring that applies to all of us is full surrender.
I hope so. I think that God can do a lot through a fully surrendered life, even more than strategy and concepts. And that's what I strive to have a heart of full surrender.
What a joy to meet you. And thank you so much. I just want to say personally, the delicious quotes at the beginning of every chapter. And here's one of my favorites from Richard Green. No strategy, no amount of resources, no training can do what a fully surrendered life can do. You're living that, despite all the other stuff, all the special training. Now, if you think you're ready to, well, as Caleb says, push the button to the 13th floor, that place no one wants to go. Most hotels don't even have a 13th floor. Caleb has listed in this book missions and ministries, many of them I'm familiar with, that you may want to explore. They are in the dark, dangerous, and despised categories. Maybe someone you know is just itching to live an adventure that doesn't just put their lives at risk, as is very popular in our culture right now, but actually will advance God's kingdom. And you probably want to learn more about this real-life kingdom adventurer here, www.unusualsoldiers.com. And I'm delighted to say thank you, Caleb. This book is at our e-store. God bless and keep you safe. How much time do you get to be home with your family?
I'll be here for a few weeks, and then we're off to another kind of closed area. And so God's good. I do about 6 trips a year, so yeah.
Come back and tell us stories, will you?
You bet. I'd love to. Thanks for having me.
We've been inspired.